Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Erin Uritis, and I'm the Director of Communications and Business Development for International School Services, otherwise frequently known as ISS. There's never been a better time to be in this very exciting and dynamic world of international education. This webinar is the second in a series presented by ISS as part of our commitment to helping connect the world's best teachers and international schools. So if you were with us for the first webinar a month ago, you learned about the benefits of taking your career overseas at a pretty introductory level. In today's webinar, we're going to take a deeper dive into the specific overseas opportunities, where and what the jobs are, the criteria and requirements for teaching abroad, and finally, how to come on and work with ISS to get the process started. So throughout the year, we will be offering webinars on a variety of topics and targeting educators who are curious about or new to international education, as well as those with more experience. We'll be speaking more about the webinar series later, and you can always find more information on our website at www.iss.edu in the Career Services section, where you simply click on Find an International Education Job. And finally, we are recording today's webinar, so if you have colleagues or friends that were not able to make it, please feel free to pass on that link once we post it. Okay, let's get started with the first slide. We are glad you're here and to learn from and engage with key people leading our global recruitment business. They and members of their team have helped thousands of educators like you make the jump and find great jobs overseas. So first, I'm pleased to introduce Ms. Laura Light, who is the director of our global recruitment business for ISS, and she oversees a wonderful team of several people who have already been or may be working with some of you online as we speak today. Laura also has decades of experience in many countries as an international educator, so she is an expert on this exciting career choice and lifestyle, and can also speak with authority on the actual process to make that happen for you. Additionally, I welcome one of Laura's team members, Dana Zarello, the Global Recruitment Team and Event Coordinator. Dana is a former educator and also has several years' experience working with numerous candidates, hundreds and hundreds, advising them on creating the best possible portfolio and finding fantastic jobs. Additionally, we've got Christina Eberhardt and Tawan Hardy, who are also members of the Global Recruitment Team, and they've helped set this webinar up. Christina will be part of today's conversation, and I'll be turning it over to her in just a second. They will be helping manage the question and answer part of this, and you'll also be hearing from them in follow-up communications after this webinar. So real quickly, and then we're going to get started, one more bit of housekeeping before we begin. We really encourage everyone online and listening to ask questions, and there's a few different ways to do this, but our panelists definitely want to engage with you and hear from you. And so we'll be asking you to participate in a few ways. So again, just note that there's that box I mentioned, most likely on the upper left, where you can raise your hand or type questions with that with the Q&A button. And although we started asking you where you're from and to put that in the chat, as we move into the presentation now, we'd really love for you to direct your questions to the Q&A button. The chat feature will not be monitored as closely, so just make sure to put your questions in that with that Q&A button, and we'll be monitoring those, and we'll get them to the panelists and make sure that we try to answer as many as we can. So with that, again, welcome, and I will turn it over to Christina, who will walk us through the agenda today.
Hi, Erin. I just want to point out, and thank you so very much for introducing me. I just want to point out that we are experiencing some technical difficulties. If anyone has any issues with a screen not responding, just try and restart the program and see if you can get it up and working. So today, in this webinar, we're going to introduce you to International School Services and the Global Recruitment Team. We're also going to help you understand the enormous career opportunities for educators in international schools, including the specific benefits. We're also going to discuss minimum qualifications, along with the benefits of ISS membership, including the ISS Candidate Portal, recruiting, and iFairs, and more. We'll also show you how to get started and more about the process. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dana, who's going to ask a couple of questions. Laura is going to take over for one quick second as I go double check to make sure Dana's not also experiencing technical difficulties.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dana, and I'm the Global Recruitment Team Coordinator here at ISS. I'm going into my 5th year here on this fantastic team, but before this, I was actually a teacher and spent a significant amount of time traveling abroad. So as Christina said, we do have a couple of questions for you tonight. The first one is, we just want to get kind of a lay of the land here and see how many of you have taught abroad before. So if you can use the raise hands function on the Zoom platform to show us if you have taught abroad before, that would be terrific. All right, super. Thank you. And the second question we have for you this evening is, how many of you know somebody who is currently working abroad? Wonderful. That's great. Thank you. That really helps us to get to know our audience. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Hi, guys. Laura here. I am the Director of Ed Staff of Global Recruitment. We've changed our name recently. I have been here for 10 years, so obviously I am kind of stuck in the past on that one. I am the Director of Global Recruitment. I've been with the International School Services for 10 years, and before that I actually was a teacher overseas. I taught for 2 years at the American School of Kuwait, 3 years at the Carol Morgan School in the Dominican Republic, 2 years at Escuela Americana in El Salvador, 7 years in Singapore at Singapore American School, 1 year in London at a small school called South Bank, and then I joined the United Nations School, UNIS, in Manhattan before coming down to ISS. So I've had many experiences overseas, and I'm honored to be here with the team and with you all to give you just sort of an overview of the world of international education. And I'm going to start with this screen right here, and I'm going to give you a little bit of history. You know, the international schools have been around for a long time. They were sort of an offshoot of the UN and League of Nations. When the embassies started coming around the globe, they realized they had to educate the children. And then along with that, they also had to, the businesses started to move internationally. So schools started popping up in all of the countries around the world, and predominantly it was one school per country. So you had things like the American School of London and Singapore American School, and it went on like that for quite some time. There weren't many changes until about the 80s. And around that time, there started to be a huge uptick in the number of schools that are out there. We're not sure what brought it on, many theories of how that all happened, but as you can see from the numbers here, the explosion is happening and it is continuing. We get our numbers from a group called ISC Research based in Bangkok, and they're the ones who have figured out the number and are making the predictions for the future. And right now they're saying there's approximately 8,000 schools around the world. They say eventually in 2027 they're predicting 16,000 schools. And right now they're looking at about 500,000 teachers and predicting to be nearly 1 million teachers by 2021. So the theme here really is the growth is there, and with that, the opportunity is there. So what's what I want to point out here. Now, a couple of things we want to bring up. The growth has happened globally, but we have seen over the years that the high growth has been in places like, number one, UAE, predominantly Dubai, where many schools in that area, China, and India. Those seem to be the areas where people are really looking at education. International schools are coming about, and the parents are now have the money to pay for education for their kids. So the world of international education is exploding, and the opportunities are out there. Now, before we even get into this one, we're going to do a quick poll with you guys. As you can see, we're at International Schools by Region, but there should be a poll that will pop up on your screen. And the poll should ask, where are you interested? What are the regions that you are interested in? So take a minute, please, to take that poll. We'd just love to see where you guys are looking at. And as you're doing that poll, I'm going to do a quick overview about the schools and in the various regions. As I mentioned in the last screen, Asia is a huge place for opportunity. And this screen right here shows that Asia is about 39% of our schools come from that area. And to be quite honest with you, that number is going to grow. We are contacted all the time by new schools coming up in all over Asia, predominantly China, but Asia is also Thailand and Singapore and Myanmar, so and Japan and Korea. So Asia is a huge place. The next place, the two that are running neck and neck, or the international schools by region, are the Middle East and Europe. And that's really interesting. Many schools in Europe work with us, as well as many schools in the Middle East. There are probably more opportunities in the Middle East, and I'll get into that with jobs by region, but we do work with many schools around the world. And then there are schools in Africa, and then schools in Latin America. And Latin America is actually South America and Central America. And then, yes, we also work with international schools here in the United States. All right, so we have a broad base. Now, I do have to point out one thing, one area that we always get questions about this, and that is, do we have schools in Australia and in that area? And unfortunately, we don't. The international students in that area predominantly go to local schools. So that is where our schools are. Dana, you have any comments about the poll?
No, actually, Laura, I am currently experiencing technical difficulties, so I actually can't see the results of the poll. If you can,
no, unfortunately, I can't either. So I'm having it as well. So we will look at that. Thank you guys for taking part in the poll.
Laura, I just wanted to let you know, I just shared the results. So if you guys can't see the screen, I'm happy to read off the results to you, but I did just share it, so it may have popped up now.
It has not, Erin. Can you go ahead and share it for us, please?
Sure. So we've got Europe leading the pack at 76%, 56 out of 74 of you. Then followed by Asia at 57%. Latin America is coming in at almost 50%. Middle East, 28%. And then we've got Australia and Oceania that Laura just referred to, 36%. Africa, 12%. And Latin America, 47%. And North America, 15%.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Unfortunately, it's not popping up on my screen, and that does follow a norm that we see here. A lot of people are interested in going to Europe, and a lot of people are interested in going in a very specific area. But one of our main themes here is keep an open mind. And so with that, we want to show you, and Dana's going to talk a little bit about this one, talk about keeping an open mind.
Yeah, Laura, it's just so important if you are actually really want to get abroad to keep an open mind and be flexible in terms of where you want to go. And kind of along those lines with this next slide, we just wanted to give you a little glimpse into life abroad. So what you're seeing with this slide is the Kaus School in Saudi Arabia, and what a beautiful campus it is. It is pristine, clean. There are open areas. There's a playground. It's near the water. It's gorgeous. And fun fact, ISS was tasked with starting this school many years ago.
And it's, I actually had a friend that worked at the Kaus School. It's an outstanding school. The living situation is fantastic. And it is one of the better contracts out there. So going back to that theme of being open-minded, you do want to consider all options. And with that, let me show you another one, the American International School in Abuja, Nigeria. It's a school of about 500 students. Again, some people might not have even considered Abuja, Nigeria. They have a new head that's gone in there, and you get a glimpse as to what the school is like. As you can see, the student body is multinational. The school itself is a very nice school. And as someone who's worked in these schools, I can tell you that they're all very well supplied. They have strong, very supportive admin, and it's a great community to be part of. Now, going along with that, with the vacancies by region, which is an interesting part, as you noticed before, Asia was the biggest region of where the schools were, where we worked with. And that continues with the vacancies. That mirrors what's going on there. But what changes here is you can see that there are more vacancies in the Middle East than there are in Europe. Although we work with about the same number of schools, in actuality, there's probably more opportunities in the Middle East. And again, the theme of being open-minded. And as a single woman who moved to the Middle East many years ago, I want people to just be open-minded and consider it. We call it the CNN effect. People get scared about certain regions in the world, and you always have to make a decision that you're comfortable with, but we really want you to explore all opportunities. Now, one of the things I do want to get into along those lines is the types of international schools. And I think this is the informative part of this session, because as you're looking to international schools, you need to know what is out there. And so this is a very high level information piece, but let me just go over the variety of schools that are in the world out there. First of all, there's the private nonprofit schools. And those are very much like the schools here in the United States, sort of a school district in the United States. They're private, they're nonprofit. The boards are parents of the students who attend that school. The board hires the superintendent then hires all of the faculty, and the monies all go back into the school. And these were the ones that were out there, that have been out there for a long time. And a lot of the big schools are the private nonprofit. But along the other schools that are out there are the company schools or the managed schools. And actually, this is ISS's forte. We actually own and manage approximately 20 schools. And what that is companies ask groups like us, ISS, and there are other groups out there, but they ask groups like us to come in and open a school for them. And my example of that would be our school in Kazakhstan. Chevron went in and opened up an oil refinery in Kazakhstan, and they knew that they could run the oil refinery, but they didn't have the wherewithal to run the school. So they reached out to ISS, and so we managed the school for them in Kazakhstan. We also do the same thing in Indonesia. We help a mining facility in Madagascar. So a company school is basically an outside company that asks another group such as us to manage the schools. And predominantly the company schools are in the out of the way places. They're a little bit in an obscure place. The next type of school is the proprietary school. And to be quite honest with you, this is where the growth is. More and more schools are opening up around the world, and they're owned by a group or a person, and they are proprietary. That means they run more along the lines of a business. But saying that, there are some great proprietary schools out there. So just so you know, there are many schools out there that are proprietary. You are going to run into that. Another type of school that you're going to run into are the religious affiliated schools. And yes, these are all around the world as well. The Hong Kong International School is a Lutheran school in Hong Kong. And so there's a Lutheran-based school. We also work with NICS, which is a Christian organization which has many schools around the world too. So you will see that in many of the schools that recruit through us. There are also the United Nations schools. And to be quite honest with you, there's really only 2 of them. There's one in Manhattan, which is an outstanding school. I'm a little biased on that one, but it's a great school. And the other one is in Hanoi. And honestly, that's a fabulous school. So there's only 2 United Nations schools, but we did put that in there because they're an interesting piece. The other area of growth are in the national schools. And again, this is where we're seeing more and more happening. In other words, more opportunity for you guys if this is what you're thinking about. The national schools are like schools in China who have a local school, but they want to open up an international division. And so what they do is they open up a section of their school, and they bring in Western teachers from the United States and Canada and the UK, but they are based in a national school. So we're seeing more and more of those come about. And the last type of international schools are the United States Department of Defense schools. I'm actually a DoD graduate, and we don't work with the DoD schools, but if you're interested in these, go look into this. And they have schools in Germany and in Italy and in Japan, and I think they're doing a little bit of a downsizing, but they are great schools as well. And they're the ones who are working on the American military bases to educate the students there. So Dana, anything about the schools that we work with?
Yes, actually, and first, Laura, I just want to take a minute and say that we apologize. We understand that some of you may not be able to see the slideshow at the moment. It seems that we were so popular tonight, we may have initiated some connectivity issues. But what you would be seeing, if you could see something, are two beautiful pictures of our newest ISS schools. So Laura mentioned a few minutes ago that ISS is part of our business is to manage schools internationally. Now, we work with about 250 international schools who recruit through us each year, but we have a special place in our heart for our ISS managed schools. The two newest members of our little family are the Thai Sikh International School in Bangkok, Thailand, which was founded in 1985 by the Thai Sikh Foundation, and it is a nonprofit school. And the other is our wonderful little school in Sofia, Bulgaria, which is the American English Academy. This school was originally funded to serve the expat community in Sofia, but now the school serves over 30 different nationalities and quite a few host country nationals. Both of these schools will, of course, be recruiting through ISS this year.
And Dana, just to follow up on that one, the one in Sofia, Bulgaria, from what I understand, is expanding. So again, more opportunity. I believe they're opening up another campus. And these schools will be recruiting with us. And one of the things I did want to point out is we do work with the ISS managed and owned schools, of course, but these are not the only schools that recruit through us. We recruit with hundreds of schools around the world, but we are doing a little plug for the ISS schools. And here are two more for you guys to look at. Yangon International School in Myanmar. Again, a lot of people think that they're moving to sort of a developing country and they're not really sure what they're going to get into, but here's a classic example. It's great school, great facilities, and that really is, they've done an outstanding job. And of course, I can't continue on without mentioning Cayman International School. Who wouldn't want to go live and teach in Cayman? What a great place to be. And that's another beautiful facility. So, and along those lines, again, let me just go through another overview about these schools. Again, information for you guys to walk away with. People ask these questions. What's the curriculum? What's the language of instruction? Who are the students there? So really, let me start first with the language of instruction. We get that all the time. The language of instruction in all the schools that ISS works with is English. So when you live and work in these countries around the world, you will be teaching in English. Now, saying that, you're going to be teaching many multicultural children, multinational children. So you are going to have a lot of ELL instruction, and they're going to be bilingual. So it is a little bit of a different aspect of how your classroom will be run, but it's also one of the benefits of working in these schools. But the curriculum is usually sort of advanced placement or US-based. They're very big into the International Baccalaureate. So the curriculum is things that teachers would know from our countries and as they move overseas. And the best part of all of this is the student body. They are multinational. You have many different languages in your classroom and different perspectives, and they really are a fun place to work because of that student body. I can't speak more highly of the experiences I've had in these classrooms. The one thing I will say though about the student body is the parents they want the best for their children. So it's along the lines of work hard, play hard. And you will be asked to have very high standards and work pretty hard, but you also get a lot of play that goes along with it. So the student body is the best part. And then the governance we've already touched on. They're independent, community-based, company-sponsored, or church-related, or proprietary. So the benefits of teaching overseas, and there are many of them. They're incredible benefits. One of the first things we talk about is the money aspect. You actually can make quite a nice salary working overseas. Sometimes what the salary is deceiving. It might not seem to be as high as what you might be getting somewhere here in the United States. But one of the things you have to look at with the incredible benefits is the aspect of the contract offers many parts. So it includes housing, it includes airfare. Each school is different and each contract is different. So I'm not saying this across the board. And as you work to find out about each of the different schools, you do need to educate yourself. But the incredible benefits that go along with that is that you are able to be able to save more money and have a much higher standard of living.
Right, Laura, and I think, you know, along with that extra money comes a whole new lifestyle opened up to you, right, with the adventure. I know if I were in a school abroad, I'd be heading off on the weekend every time to go to a new country or eat new food. That's my favorite part of traveling, everybody. But that, it just opens up a whole new world to you, doesn't it?
It really does. And honestly, you're speaking to someone who's never taken a Spanish class in her life. And yet, after my years in Latin America, I managed to have passable Spanish. And the new food is wonderful. And weekends in Bali or weekends in Guatemala, it didn't matter where you live, you always manage to run off and have great experiences. And the other thing about it, too, is you are working with people who are like-minded. So you make some great friends who want to do the same thing. You always have a new adventure. And so the opportunity to grow and see the world applies. And it says here it applies to you and your family that you bring along. And I'm a big believer in this. Many people are hesitant about moving abroad because of their children. You can do nothing better for your kids than to take them and live and work overseas, because they then become global citizens. Their experience and their learning opportunities is immense.
Right. So one of the next things that we wanted to just touch on is job security. I know that we are always seeing stories here in the United States about mass teacher layoffs and jobs in jeopardy. And that's just not the case in international schools. The opportunities are there. The sector is booming, and it's not one where you have to fear for your job security.
Yeah, it wasn't. And again, the opportunities are out there. And then, of course, it's the teaching. And that's the best part of working in an international school. The classrooms are great. The administrative is supportive of you. There's smaller class sizes. There's more flexibility. You have the ability to be really creative. You can bring what you want to the table. Saying that, you are expected, you have some high expectations from the administration and from the parents, but the creativity and the ability to do some wonderful things in a classroom is just immense. So, and with that, let's talk about the benefits of joining ISS.
This is my favorite part, everybody. All right, so there's so many benefits to joining ISS. The first one, of course, is access to jobs. That's what everybody is here for, right? So when you join ISS as a candidate, we are sort of your one-stop shop. You log into our system and you have hundreds of jobs at your fingertips that you can apply to with the click of a button. Of course, I can't say enough about the magnificent international education community. When you are a part of our family, it's a community of educators that is second to none. You can check out our Twitter hashtag ISSEDU to see what is going on there. And I just can't say enough about this global family. I know as an educator, I'm very glad to be a part of it. One of my favorite things, and something that we get great feedback about with our jobs, is the email notifications. And basically with that, we are hand delivering jobs to you each and every morning. You'll get an email with all of the jobs that have been added in the past 24 hours right in your inbox, so you can see them and click on a link to apply to those jobs. Along the same lines, as an ISS candidate, you have access to the salary and benefits information for all of our international schools that are recruiting through us. This is really essential information when you're making those big life-changing decisions about where to move abroad. The next is events, and the importance of these cannot be stressed enough. We offer 6 events each recruiting season. 3 of those are online events, so you can recruit from the comfort of your own home. We call these iFairs. The ISS was the first to do this 3 years ago, and they have been so successful. We've been continuing them every single year. But even more of a spotlight should be shown on our live events, and we're really known for these in-person job fairs. They are so important, and so many people, we know that it's an investment, but it usually pays off in dividends. So many people leave these with their dream job. One of the other things is support from the global recruitment team, and I have to give a nod to my fantastic team here. They're wonderful. We are here to support you. You will be assigned one person to hold your hand through the process, the entire experience from start to finish. But behind them, you also have a team of 10 here in the office acting as your support system, your cheerleaders, here to answer your questions. And then, of course, the last bonus, which I really think is just so incredible, is expert advice from the ISS senior leadership team. So these guys and women are all experienced heads of school internationally. They have decades of experience under their belt, and we see them all the time at our live events in the candidate lounge, talking to you guys, helping you understand your contracts, answering your questions, talking to you about maybe considering an area that you've never considered before. It's really invaluable insight into the world of international education.
And thank you, Dana, Dana, for that. And I will say two things that jump out at me. As a former ISS candidate, I did this years ago, and the events are really important for you guys to consider. Having a sit-down, face-to-face meeting with somebody that you might be working with is so important. And the job email notifications every morning is just fun to wake up to, and it gives you a perspective of all the different opportunities out there. So I do want to highlight those two big points. So let's talk about coming on with ISS and what needs and how it works. And we do have qualifications to come on with ISS. And know that these qualifications are actually set up in cahoots with the schools that we work with. They ask us for this. This is not what ISS has put in place, but the schools have asked us to require these because it then helps them bring the teachers in. And so, and I'll get to that. We do work with new students, and we also work with experienced teachers. So let me start with the new student teachers, or the ones that are coming up, the seniors in college right now. If you're a senior in college and you're considering working abroad, we welcome you to ISS. You are going to need a degree in education or your subject matter, and then you're going to need, and here's a mistake in our PowerPoint, my apologies. You are going to need 1 semester of students teaching and your teacher certification. Now, you might not have your certification yet. We just want you to be working on it. And the reason for this, again, why the schools are asking for this, is this is how the schools justify your work visas. So you need to make sure you have your teaching certification and at least 1 semester of student teaching. Now, if you're an experienced teacher, you also have to have a degree. Again, education or your subject area. And in this one, you can have at least 2 years of experience or your teaching certificate. And in actuality, that probably should say, and your teaching certificate. Many of the schools need the teaching certificate to, again, justify the work visas. But we also realize that there are some great schools, great teachers out there working in independent schools all around the country. And they might have years of experience, but they haven't gotten their teaching certification. Yes, we work with those teachers as well. So please come on with us and look at the opportunities that are out there. But I wanted you guys to have a basic understanding of what the qualifications are, where to come on with ISS, and why we have that. And with that, we can go in the membership process.
Yeah, Laura, before we continue on to that, there were some questions coming in from candidates or listeners who are not teachers, people like counselors, librarians, and administrators. And I just want to say that the qualifications are pretty similar. So with counselors and librarians, you need a master's degree in that area and preferably a state certification in that area as well. For administrators, the international schools really want to see an advanced degree in educational leadership, state certification as a school administrator, and they really do prefer at least 2 years of experience. However, we, ISS, will support you with if you meet only 2 of those 3 criteria.
Thank you for that. And you're right about that, Dana. And we do, just so everybody knows, we do welcome counselors, librarians, teachers, administrators, school psychologists. So the schools that we work with have a wide breadth of needs, and we welcome you to come on and create a file with us. And with that, Dana can talk a little bit about the membership process.
Yeah, so now that you've heard all this great information, we know that you're going to want to get started. The first thing, of course, is to check that you meet those qualifications that Laura just discussed. And then we would really encourage you to visit our website and take a look at the common questions or frequently asked questions there. There's just a wealth of information that we couldn't possibly cover in the span of a webinar, but most of your questions can probably be answered on that page. And if not, you can always reach out to the global recruitment team here in Princeton. The third thing that you're going to want to do really before you start the application is get your documents together. And by that, we don't just mean, you know, have your certification handy and ready to go, but the international schools require references. And this is somewhere where international schools diverge completely from US schools. So the international schools require confidential references. So that means that before you start this application, you're going to want to decide who your references are going to be, and let them know that when you complete the application, ISS is going to reach out to them with a form to complete. You can then start the application process. You will list your references within the document and then submit. Once we have your application, we're going to review it to make sure that everything looks great, all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, and you're the best possible candidate you can be. And then we receive your references and you are good to go. We're going to activate your file so you can start your job search.
And let me just back up a little bit on the comment about references, Dana, which is very valid on what you had said. One of the reasons ISS is here is to help the schools get those references. That's kind of our job. Please let your references know it won't take them any more than 5-10 minutes to complete the online application. It's just a chart where they have to click some boxes. It's not something where they have to write a long, lengthy letter to support you. I know many teachers get a little nervous about asking for references because they think it's very time consuming. So we've done what we can to make it easy for you to get the references and easy for them to complete it, which goes on from there. But you do need to have at least 3 references, and we do encourage you to think about getting even more than that. And then from that, once you're active, let's talk about the events that we have. You will be getting emails every day that we're talking about the jobs that are being added and what the schools are looking for. But we really want you to consider looking at all the different events that we have. We have an October iFair, actually in about a week and a half, if you guys want to join us for that. It is an online session where the schools and the candidates come together and go into chat rooms. We'll have another one in November. We're then going to be in Atlanta, Georgia from December 3rd to the 5th at the Grand Hyatt Buckhead. We then go on to Bangkok, Thailand from January 5th through 8th. And then we will have a last face-to-face recruitment conference in New York on February 8th to 11th. And then one last iFair in March. Some of you might be asking, why November, December, January, and February? Isn't that early? And I want to point out that the recruiting season for international schools is completely different than recruiting in the United States or in other parts of the world. And that's because the schools have to make decisions much earlier. They want to hire in December, January, and February because they need to get back to their schools to line up the airplane tickets, to line up the visas, to get the shipments in place, and get everything going for you to come. And that does take a couple of months. So the recruiting season for international schools is completely different and much earlier. So we encourage you not to wait. We say, come on now and look what's going on so you have a wide opportunities out there.
That's great. Now, some of you are probably wondering why ISS versus any other organization, and there are some other options out there, so we need to tell you that, right? One of the greatest reason, and I think why we're known worldwide, is that we've been doing this for over 60 years. ISS was actually the first organization founded for this purpose to support international schools and advance the mission of international education. And up to date, in those 60 years, we have connected over 40,000 educators and schools around the world. Probably the reason that is nearest and dearest to my heart is that we're a nonprofit. That means that we're not profit driven. We're not out to make a buck. We actually care about what we do. We care about you. We care about our schools. And I can honestly say I've been in education for a long time, and I've never worked on a team that is more passionate about what they do. Another thing that you may not know, which is really kind of interesting about ISS as opposed to other organizations, is that's that ISS provides a myriad of services to international schools across the globe. So we don't just serve them in their recruitment needs, we serve them in purchasing their school supplies, in managing their schools, in offering professional learning, and so much more. So these schools are loyal to us, and we've really built a relationship over the decades through this wide array of offerings. And then, of course, there's nothing like the ISS community, and that is the truth. This is a wonderful family of educators, and you can see from the pictures in front of you that they are just so happy. They're happy with where they've been, and they're happy with where they're going, and we are just so happy to be a part of that experience.
And we really are a community, Dana. We work together, we support the schools, we support the educators. And if you want to find out more, we also have built communities online. We've got social media communities and on Twitter and on Facebook. So go to our website and find out about all the different places where we're connected. We encourage you to join our community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christina. I realize that there have been questions that have been coming in all along, and Christina, I think, has been sort of tallying them and going along, and we're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we can. So, Christina, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Laura. I really appreciate it. And we've had a lot of great questions coming in. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions. So let's get started. So let's get started. All right, our first question is from Mark. He said that he's heard spouses could be a deterrent from getting hired.
Hey, I think we have some dead air right now. Christina is either not connected or she's on mute. We are hanging there with us while we figure out these technical difficulties.
I can hear her.
I can hear her.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Oh, that's funny. Just
Looks
Laura
like
and I can't then.
Okay, keep talking, Chris. Oh, okay.
No, it's fine. If Dana and Laura can't hear me, Erin, would you like to moderate the questions?
I'm not hearing anybody, guys.
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Erin, we can.
Okay,
Do you have the questions, Erin?
Yeah, I do. So
Thank
what
you
Christina
so
was
much.
saying was that Mark is asking, I've heard that spouses can be a deterrent to getting hired. Is that true? My spouse has a job where she works at home and is hoping to continue in that job if I teach and we live abroad.
I'm sorry, the first part, is talking about a spouse and bringing a dependent along with you? Is that what the question was, Erin?
Yeah, Mark was saying he heard that having a spouse can be a deterrent. Is that true?
That's a really good question. And, you know, when I first got into the world of international education, the schools were a little bit more hesitant about bringing people on with dependents, and that's what we call it. But I have found, especially in recent years, because the demand is out there and the teachers are sort of in the driving seat, that they are open to bringing teachers in with dependents. And especially, Mark, if your spouse has a job and can work from home or can work remotely like that, it's something you need to explain to the schools. They like that kind of thing. The rule out there, and it's not a hard, fast rule, but the rule out there is sort of one contract, one dependent. So no, don't let the aspect of having dependent deter you at all.
Okay, super. I'll just keep going. Steve is asking, what is the general stance of specifically American schools hiring non-Americans?
Good question. You know, honestly, the aspect of specifically American schools is kind of going by the wayside. All of these schools are really becoming international schools. In all the schools I've worked with and the ones I'm still interacting with, they're looking for good educators. They're not looking for American educators. And in actuality, in all the schools I worked with, they loved bringing on Australians and Canadians because you bring your suitcase with you, your teaching and learning with you, and the other teachers love it because it's a learning opportunity for them. So, no, there's many opportunities for everybody.
Super. Laura and Dana, we've got several questions that kind of relate to bringing children along. So if you could maybe discuss just in general, what is the appetite and interest of schools hiring teachers with the dependents, and then how does that work if you've got more than one child?
Yeah, for sure. Laura, do you want to take this one? It's kind of along the same lines as the dependent spouse.
Sure, it is kind of long. Yes. First of all, as I said in the presentation earlier, I really recommend you taking your children internationally. It is such a learning curve for them, and they're going to come out of it as a global citizen. So the opportunities are there. But yet it is more difficult. It is a financial decision on the school's part, because it's not only just bringing you over as a teacher, it's airfare and housing and also paying for their education, because predominantly the education comes along with the contract, although some of the contracts will only sort of offer half the tuition and you might have to pay the other half. But the biggest comment on this is every school is different, but every school is open-minded to bringing in dependents and spouse and children. Again, I'm going to say my earlier comment was sort of along the lines of one contract, one dependent, but we've seen many times where teachers have been hired with a spouse and 2 children. So it is going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be a harder one. And to be honest with you, if you're in a subject area, teaching physics or chemistry, or that's really needed, they're going to be more open-minded about that. But again, it is a financial decision on the school's part, and that's a conversation that you'd have to have with the schools. Yeah. Most of the schools we know are open-minded, but there are some that just can't afford it.
Right, Laura, sorry, I just want to jump in there and say also that there are certain regions of the world that are more apt to take on a family. Isn't that true? I think areas where the schools are booming and very well funded, you might find that they're more amenable to taking, they can sort of afford to accommodate a family, a larger family size.
That is true. Without a doubt it is. And again, the answer to that, or what you're saying there, it really depends on the school. So what I would say is open the door and find out.
Great. Christine, I'm happy to keep jumping in with questions. I am getting a notice on the board saying that you might answer some of these live. Can you hear us, and do you want to answer, or should I keep going with the questions?
If you could keep going, Erin, that would be perfect. I'm just making sure that if we're addressing a question, that we're marking that as being answered live.
Okay, cool. So Laura, we actually have a few questions coming in by different people who are asking about their ability to teach overseas if they are, if they do special ed. And also an interest in, like, some people want to know about the different types of teaching, like if they're doing chemistry or in languages, maybe what the general kind of landscape is for different opportunities with people coming in with different expertise.
Interesting. Okay, good question. The schools around the world are a microcosm of what's happening here in the United States. There is a heavy need for teachers of chemistry and physics and the math areas. You will find that there's more need. It'll be easier to find a job if that's your subject area. But all the schools I worked in had special ed support. They all try to hire people to work in those areas. The schools offer a wide variety. The K through 12, special ed, music, arts. They really do fund the breadth of all the areas within the school. So we encourage everybody to come on with us. The one thing I will say, though, which I didn't touch on earlier, is some people out there might be TEFL teachers, which is teaching English as a foreign language, and that's their certification. And the school, there's a huge community that does that, and it's a big world in Korea and lots happening in Japan. So there are many job opportunities, but those are not the schools that we work with. They're looking for K through 12 teachers who have certification from state or government and are special ed teachers and are high school physics teachers and social studies teachers and elementary teachers. So it crosses the board on all of that, but we're going in that direction with away from the teaching English as a foreign language.
Cool. And Laura and Dana, this is a great one that's more like an insider question that you may have some access to. And that is, Janelle is asking, can you tell us which area of the world typically allows you to save the most money relative to the salary and cost of living of the area? Oh, that's a great question. Do you have any insight on that?
That's a very good question.
Oh, great question. Yeah.
Well,
Laura, do you want to take it out? I think, from my experience, I think that I'd probably have to give a plug to the Middle East in this area. The salaries are generally great. The benefits packages are generally really great. You are so taken care of as a teacher in that area, and you can bank a lot of money while still traveling on your vacations and weekends. But Laura, I'm interested to hear what you have to say on that, having been abroad.
you're right about that, Dana. The Middle East is one of the places where you can get a very nice contract and put away some money and have a very comfortable lifestyle. The Middle East and Asia as well. You have many big schools out there that offer a very comfortable lifestyle. One of the other places I'm going to put a plug in for, though, is Latin America. And what I'm going to say about that is, while the salaries might not be as high, your cost of living isn't as high either. And so I always talk about this when we're at events. Don't overlook these great schools in Latin America. While their basic salary in the package might not really compare per se to big schools in the Middle East, the cost of living, your groceries, your day-to-day lifestyle is going to be much cheaper than the Middle East. So there are some wonderful schools in Latin America as well, which I highly encourage people to look at. So Latin America and Middle East and Asia are great places. Europe is one that everybody wants to go to, and rightly so. I understand that. The one thing I will say about Europe is it's very similar to living in the United States. You do pay your own rent. You get a great salary, but you will pay for your own rent and you'll pay for your own expenses. But you get to live in Europe. So that's the give and take on that one. So, Erin?
Yeah, great. And so Laura, I think we have some many seasoned educators on the line, because we've got several questions from different people asking about age restrictions or any difference in the process for them. I thought that's a great one to answer.
That is a good one, and that's one that we're seeing more and more, and especially in recent years. When I first got into international education, it wasn't in place, and in recent years, we have seen that age restrictions have been put in place, and these are being done by the countries, not by the schools. The countries are putting in the age they can be to get the work visa for each of the educators. We don't know why this is really coming about. I mean, I know one country out there is 55. A lot of them, and that's only one. A lot of them are 62 to 65. But it has something to do with sort of the infrastructure they have within the country, and the schools have to abide by the rules of the country.
Okay, super. And Laura, there's also a few questions about, are there many opportunities for site administration, like principals, assistant principals, et cetera? And then maybe, Laura, if you want to take the opportunity to talk about how we also have admin search and how that kind of overlaps with that question.
Good point. Right. Yes, there are many opportunities out there for principals, assistant principals in all of these schools around the world. And really, those jobs are being added right now, because those decisions are being made right now about next year. So if you are in administration, you do want to kind of do it even earlier than what we talked about before. But there are many opportunities for assistant principals, and head searches. We actually have a whole department here at ISS, administrative searches, run by our vice president, Beth Fannell. And she does the specific searches for schools all around the world, and she does an outstanding job. And you can find out information about how to contact Beth through our website. And if you're out there looking for a headship position, I highly encourage you to do that, because she has a couple of searches going on right now that you guys might want to consider being part of. But going back to the principals and assistant principals, there are really many opportunities out there. There was one added yesterday for the high school principal for the American School of Dubai, and they're going to just keep coming. But those decisions are going to be made earlier. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Thanks, Laura. Just switching gears a little bit, we have some folks asking about and getting excited about our recruiting fairs and wondering about, is one like Atlanta better to attend than New York, what the benefits might be to going to either one of those, and then also hearing about the iFair and wanting to know more about that. You guys want to talk about recruiting fairs?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's actually a great question, and one that we get an awful lot. Which fair is the best one to attend, or which one is the best to attend if you're a counselor or a Spanish teacher? So it depends on so many factors, really. And the thing that we would encourage you to do is come on with ISS, see where the jobs for you are, and then see where the schools with those jobs are going to be recruiting, what fair they're going to be going to, because it makes no sense really to sign up for a fair if you're going to get there and there aren't going to be the schools that you want to talk to, right? So it does require a little bit of a wait and see attitude, but it pays off in the end. So you want to attend the fair where the schools with the jobs for you are going to be going. Now that being said, some of our fairs have different points of attraction for different people. Our Atlanta event is earlier in the season. So it's a really great little event. It's more intimate. It tends to see a lot of South American, Latin American based schools. However, it's expanding. I think it grows, Laura, right, each year by it's just kind of booming right now, which is great because we are seeing more Asian schools and more European schools and more African schools coming to Atlanta. Our Bangkok event attracts a lot of experienced international educators. So if you're in that region, it does make sense to attend our Bangkok fair. That's usually a great fair as well. A lot of happy people from that event. And then finally, our New York event this year, the event in February is always our biggest event of the year. So that's going to be a terrific event this year. Laura, did you have anything that you wanted to say about Manhattan specifically?
Well, we're going to be doing some new things in Manhattan. We're going to be looking at offering some professional development that will go along with the hiring fair, and more on that will be coming. But our February event has always been our biggest event. We usually have anywhere from around 100 schools that will come in and look for teachers. And again, the February used to be sort of the prime time to do the hiring. But I got to back up what Dana was saying. Our Atlanta fair, we see there's been a lot of growth, and we're seeing more and more schools look to hire earlier. And we know that schools are asking their teachers to make decisions earlier so that they can do their hiring even earlier on, because again, it's so competitive for the schools. And but so you want to look at, as Dana mentioned, you want to look at the events and see what schools are there and which ones are the ones that interest you. But I'm going to finish that up by saying what I always say: be open-minded. You'll be surprised at where you end up if you come in with an open mind. But the season is shifting a little bit earlier. Again, why we're pushing you guys to consider coming on with ISS now, and do look at our events.
Right. I'm sorry, Erin. I think that the question also referenced the iFairs. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, one of them did.
Yeah. So the iFairs are terrific. It's really kind of like, if you're familiar with the concept of speed dating, it's sort of like an online speed dating where the recruiters all show up and the teachers come, everybody logs in at the same time, and you have these little chats. And sometimes the magic happens and you decide to take the chat into a Skype interview and then another interview, and then you end up getting hired as a result of a couple-minute conversation on an iFair. So it is terrific. These events are totally great for networking and making those initial connections. Absolutely.
And along those lines, ISS has tried hard to work on their technology to keep up to date, and the iFair is one of the cutting edge things that we have done. And honestly, when you come on with ISS, you'll also see the database and the information and the ability to use what we have set up in place for you guys is really outstanding, because we are sincerely trying to help you land the job.
Great. And Laura and Dana, maybe just another one or two questions, and the rest of them, we're still getting lots of questions. Some of them are very specific and granular about specific parts of the application process. I think that we've got a lot of information up on our website, and I promise to all the everybody on that we're going to answer these questions. The team will answer these questions in Q&A, and then we'll make sure that we get those out to everybody. But one thing I thought we could end with, Lauren and Dana, is that there's a few questions that I was trying my best to kind of scan all these and then consolidate this into a theme. But essentially what it boils down to is questions about different curriculum, like if you have IB experience or you don't, and what kind of opportunities are there. And also folks who really want to make this jump, it looks like there's some questions about, like, if they teach a certain subject matter, is it better for them to go ahead and try to get certified in other areas to give them a better chance?
All right, let me start on the curriculum piece, because that's a very good question, and one that I've run into myself. And the schools out there have each school has their own curriculum. They have their own system in place. If you have an IB background, and IB is really big in these schools, if you have an IB background, kudos to you, because that is something that these schools really want. International Baccalaureate is a very popular way, a very big entity out there in the world of international education. If you don't have the IB experience, two things I'm going to say about that is, number one, see if you can find out about doing some online training. Go to ibo.org. They do much online training, so you can educate yourself about that and go into it. But go into any of these schools or contact any of these schools with the concept of, I am ready to learn, I am ready to do it. And I'm speaking from experience here, because the school that I worked at in London was an IB school, and I was not IB trained. But because I went into the interview saying, I am ready to learn, I am ready to do this, they took me on and they trained me. They went through the whole process with me. So it's really a little bit about attitude going in that one. Be open-minded, say you're ready to take it on. But the curriculum is very wide, but they are predominantly sort of U.S. The schools that we work with are U.S. based. It's changing a little bit, but that's what I would say about that. As far as getting certification in another area, again, you're talking to somebody who I started off as an early childhood educator, and I ended up in the middle school, so I sort of worked my way up. And on that one, again, it's being open-minded and saying, I can do the job. Sure, go back and see if you can get some other certification, but make sure that you put all your experience on your resume, because if you've taught something for a semester or two or a year, they'll look at that and say, I'll give it a chance. I was teaching ESL in Portland, Oregon, and I was doing K through 6, and because of that, then they hired me as a 6th grade teacher in El Salvador. So again, it's all about sort of selling yourself and saying you can do it. But also look into training outside of what you have done to show the schools that you are ready to take it on. And then saying that, we actually in New York, one of the things that we talked about it a little bit is part of our professional development is we are going to be doing some in-service or some overview of the IB at our New York event in February. So you might want to consider coming to that. Dana, do you have anything to follow up on that?
No, actually, you just touched on what I was going to say. For those U.S. Educators who don't have any experience with the IB curriculum, if you're able to come to our New York event, I would strongly encourage you to get there for that IB session with the fantastic Mary Vedra. That I think it's the day before we start on Friday, so that would be Thursday.
February 8th.
Thursday, February 8th. And so that will set you up for a successful job fair experience and give you what you need to be successful.
And it'll give you the conversation piece. You'll be able to speak about it. But again, so much of this is about attitude. If you're ready to do it and you're ready to learn, that's what the schools want.
Great. And Laura and Dana, one more question. There are many other questions, but I'm just going to ask this one now, and then our staff is busy responding to some folks on text, and we definitely are going to, like I said, respond to everybody and all questions in a Q&A. But the last question is from Alicia, and she asks, English is not my native language. Is that a problem?
Great question.
It is a good question. It's not a problem. In some schools, they are going to want people who are teachers who English is their native language. I don't know what you teach, Lisa, so I don't know what the subject matter is. But no, it's not a huge issue. It might have some doors might not open as easily for you, but it shouldn't be a big issue.
Great. And as I look at Alicia's last name, it looks Scandinavian to me. So Alicia, if you're out there and you're still listening, we know that sometimes you all have better English than we do. So,
That's true.
So true.
Listen, everybody, thank you so much. Thanks to our panelists. Thanks to the staff at ISS who's busy trying to respond to everybody. I'm really sorry for the technical difficulties. It does seem like some of us, for example, where I'm sitting in Washington, D.C., I've been able to see the slides go smoothly and hear the audio. I realize some of you out there have not been able to, and I'm really sorry about that. The video that we will publish tomorrow online, and we will send out a link to all of you, will have... we'll show all of these slides in their entirety, and you'll be able to hear the audio as well. And then, like I said, we will also be publishing responses to specific questions and answers. So before I shut down, if you want to take just another 30 seconds or a minute to ask your questions in the Q&A, then our staff will be able to track those and compile them, and we will get them back out to you. On behalf of Laura and Dana, the entire leadership team, we'd love to have you back at one of our future webinars. We'll be sending more information out. Please visit our website at iss.edu. We've got lots of specific information about how to engage with Laura and the team to find a job overseas. And once you're a member of the family, or if you're already working overseas, as Laura mentioned, we've got lots of communities and training and ongoing professional learning to be involved with. So again, thank you all very much. This is the largest turnout we've had. We're super excited that you've all written in from various corners of the world, and we'd love to have you join us again.
And I want to end this, Erin, by saying thank you to you, Erin, and to Tawan and Christina, who have spent hours putting this together, and to Dana for being part of this. The Dana and Christina and Tawan and they have done outstanding jobs on helping us pull it all together. And thank you to you too, Erin.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you all. And we will have this posted tomorrow, so take a look for that, and have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.